Hey, I'm Emily Harrison. I'm a host for Mile High Discussions. Welcome to the show. Today we'll be talking about what it means to be an adult.
I'll be your other host for today, Elastasia, and today we're joined by two guests.
My name is Tyler Murray. I'm a student at CCD. I am 26 years old and I am a communications major.
My name is Bianca Tarango. I am also a CCD student. I am going in for psychology and I'm 21 years old.
Just for reference, I and Ellie, we both go to East High School. I'm a junior and she is too. I'm 16 and
I'm 17.
She's 17, just to give you a little bit. Anyways, so in response to a lot of the political strife that's happening, and as students are going through high school, the entire globe is changing, right? We have switches in terms of technology, changes in political sphere, and students more and more are not sure what it means to be a kid growing up in a changing community. Anyway, so what do you think it means to be an adult in this sphere?
I'll go first. I think what it means to be an adult is essentially just to have a thing you're working towards, waking up every day and doing things that you don't necessarily want to do for the sake of achieving your goals and getting just in a direction that you want to go. That's
Okay.
what I think adulthood is.
And Bianca?
Yeah, it definitely is trying to go out and achieve your goals. So when you're in high school, you have goals that you want to get to, and once you start going through and seeing, okay, I'm getting closer to this goal, but it's not really what I want, so you start changing your goals and really getting to know who you are as a person, what benefits you, and that helps you also.
Yeah, so the legal age for becoming an adult is 18, but you guys keep mentioning that goals are the defining factor of what it means to be an adult. So what do you guys have to say in response to 18 being the legal age for adulthood?
I think everybody is going through their own kind of story and everybody's kind of progressing at their own speed. So to put a hard line on an age seems kind of odd to me. I don't know a better way to do it personally, but with the scope of being 18 and being able to go to war but not being able to drink, I think it seems a little unfair. And just where you are, where I was rather when I was 18 compared to now where I am 20, it's just a world of difference, and I'm not even the same person anymore. So what is the age exactly? I don't really know because I think everybody moves at their own pace.
Definitely, I would have to agree with that. I have a lot of friends that at 18 were doing completely different things that I was doing. I always felt like some of them were more ahead, some of them were more behind. So it is.
It's not quite representative.
Yeah.
Then what would be representative? So if you say that we need a hard line, I'm not sure. Ellie, what do you think?
Well, necessarily, I don't think a hard line is required because all of us have these different economic and socioeconomic stances, and we all grow up in different communities, which matures us at different rates. And so in that way, it then kind of brings together the question as well is like, what should we be teaching to prepare each other for that adulthood? And looking at the way that our world has developed, especially with our generations have been going into this like new age of technology and like access to the internet, can we really depend on the adults to help give us, that guidance that we need to the way like to navigate this new world that we've been led into?
I agree. I don't think it's easy to put a hard line on anything, and I don't think they really should be. Again, I don't know the alternative to that, but you guys are 16 and 17 and you're way more adult than I ever was or ever will be, quite honestly. And so it's just, I think everybody just moves at their own pace, and to have a hard line just seems kind of callous and just not really.
So legally you kind of need a hard line, obviously, to make decisions such as juvenile detention versus actual adult prison, for example. Then in what instance do you think the hard lines are necessary, and what purpose do you think they serve?
I think, like you just said, adult prison is extremely important to have a hard line. I mean, there are things that are open for interpretation, but to have a young teenage person in prison amongst all of these, full-grown men who might be serving lifetime sentences, it just seems really just crazy to me. And,
Is
when
that
you're
just
a kid,
the physical age then?
Well, I think as far as prisons go, it's the physical age. You know, as far as anything else goes, I think it's a little more gray. But for prisons, it just seems like there should be more of where you draw a line in the sand as far as a kid being able, or quote unquote kid being able to go to a prison amongst all these other like full-grown adults who have like experienced life way more. Whereas like I said, when I was 18 years old, I barely knew who I was or what I was doing or anything like that, if that makes sense. But as far as other things like drinking or anything like that, it really depends on the person. I think it could be open a little bit more to I guess, interpretation.
For sure. Bianca?
Going back with what Ellie was saying with can the adults guide the youth, I believe they can, just because our parents have guided us through differently, but it also goes back to the culture, you know, like how Tyler was saying the drinking age is 21, but you go to Mexico and it's at 18, you know, and I mean you can be 17 in Mexico and go and buy yourself a beer, or you know, you go to Europe and Germany and their drinking ages are so much younger than they are here, and you don't see that they abuse it as much. So it does kind of question it, but also with the culture, definitely that I believe has a big influence.
Then at the United States, it seems our culture seems to be changing a lot right now. And Elle, you mentioned that adults, like the roles of adults can be very helpful for developing youth. How are students that are faced with an onslaught of social media supposed to find those adult figures that they need in a culture that maybe doesn't relate to them?
I think social media helps find adult figures for younger kids. I think there's a lot of bad that can come with social media. I think it stifles knee-to-knee, eye-to-eye contact and being able to kind of hold your own in social situations, actual social situations, like in real life. And I think when you rely a lot on social media and things like that, it can stifle that a little bit, your growth in that area. But also, there are a lot of really great people on social media. You can follow Neil deGrasse Tyson and learn crazy things. Like I learned.
That's cool how we like put science.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
you
so much
learn
fun.
some really interesting stuff. Or you can follow Elon Musk, or like, I don't know. There's plenty of influential people who you can take that kind of inspiration from in order to move forward with your life and just kind of find out what you're interested in and who you want to be. So there's good and there's bad with social media, but I think there is a possibility to find influences in who you look up to. It's not all bad. So.
And just going off that, how us going into adulthood and how you guys use it and show the younger generations how to correctly use it. I believe that.
If you're, what do you mean correct by using it? Using social media or?
Just in general, the internet, like Tyler was saying, you know, going to a friend and like, oh look, I just started following this awesome new cool guy, you know, and you're interested in working out. This person's interested in working out. Hey, connection, you know, and
Right.
you know.
So for you, as you maybe have not had the same opportunities for mentorship as we do as even younger students, correct?
Yes.
And I have to imagine that you faced some difficulty navigating the world where social media was new. Like Facebook came out early 2000s, right? So you guys I don't think you had the same adult mentorship that we have access to. So how were you seeking out that mentorship when you didn't have those people readily available?
I think it was just doing it hands-on. We didn't really have anyone to ask questions. I know me personally, my parents did not let me get Facebook until I was probably like 16. and going within the culture thing, they didn't want me to. But I didn't get my first cell phone until I started high school, and it wasn't even a touch screen. It was like one of those little like cricket phones. Like, it was not a touch screen. All my friends had like the coolest phones, and I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, like little kids. I think actually my brother is 13 and he's in middle school, and he has friends who got phones when they were in 4th and 5th grade.
I was recently at a family function with my girlfriend, and one of her cousins is, I think, 10 years old, and he has 300,000 followers on YouTube right now. How is that even possible? This kid has 300,000 followers on YouTube, and I have 2 loads of laundry that I haven't done.
But what I've noticed with the younger kids, they actually, the social media has limit their age. Like it used to be, you needed to be a specific age to get an account. So when I was growing up, and everybody had MySpace and Facebook, and you had to lie about your age.
We still, that's still there. That's still there. I lie about my age on Facebook. I don't know who doesn't. Then I mean,
I make myself seem younger.
I
I tell everybody I'm
the
23.
ladies.
Yeah. It's mostly for myself, honestly.
Then what age should, if kids are accessing social media at a younger and younger age, and there's the term adulting that I'm sure both of you have heard of on social media, where you're like, oh my God, it's so hard to be adult. To what degree does social media contribute to childishness and not really maturity, right, and hold you back from becoming an adult?
I think social media can just take up a lot of your time, and you can really focus on social media and basically like almost put yourself as that's like your class status. Who you are on social media is where you are in the world, and kind of focusing your energy on followers and putting out like funny content and things like that. I think it really stifles maturity in the sense that you're just worrying about things that aren't super important, and it's kind of it can really pull you back as far as being a mature adult goes.
And then sort of to challenge that too, there's a whole thing with, I mean, you go on Instagram and you look at these like girls who, you know, are 13 years old but look like they're 21, and then you're just like, wow, they skipped that awkward phase. And like, it's just this whole idea of, do you think people then are trying to grow up too fast? And as well as like, how does then our school like impact that? Like in high school, how were you taught the real world was going to be, and then how was it like versus what the actual world was like?
I don't think there's ever a class you took in high school that kind of like told you what the real world was going to be like. I mean, if you had a teacher, great, you know, but it was just going out and kind of experiencing it. And well, definitely for me, going back with like my culture, my parents were really strict. So I was not able to experience as much in high school as other people were. Like when you go to like high school parties that you're not supposed to be going to, I never went to one. So it just has a lot to do with, I believe, going back with like our parents, you know, and how they influenced you and how they set you up.
Yeah, I think it again goes to just everybody learns at their own pace and everybody's living their own life. And for me personally, my parents let me kind of experience social media kind of early on, and they just let me figure it out for myself. And I was lucky enough to be able to figure out that it's not super important early on. Like it can be a helpful tool for academia or like strengthening a resume or building a portfolio, things like that. But I think it's just like anything. The earlier you're exposed to it, the more you kind of realize how to use it as a tool. And I don't think there should necessarily be like a hard age, like this age should not be on social media. I think it's more, since it's so open-ended and people move at their own pace, it's just, you just got to figure it out for yourself. And
back to
being the
that.
generation that kind of went through the wall for social media, that's just how we learned it.
So maybe there's not really a hard line like we suggested earlier. Back to the adulthood, I think you bring up powerful messages about the role of age as just being a number, and we will have to come back to that because that is a very important note. Anyways, we have a big commercial break and we'll see you in a few. Sorry, that was really awkward.
That's okay.
At numbers. And that's not really true. You do have to be good at solving problems. So we take students through all the basic fundamentals of accounting and hope to give them enough skills to go out and work in an entry-level accounting position.
and welcome to the second segment of the show. And so just kind of picking up where we dropped off at, we were talking about adulting and social media and just the hard line of whether or not like an age should be defined, like the defining point of whether you're an adult or not. So back to that idea.
Yeah, really fast. So some people suggest that there are multiple ages in existence. There's your physical age, how much your body has matured. There's your emotional age, how much your mind has developed. There's your actual age, the number you're given at birth. There's also your emotional. There's a lot of different ages, right? So you don't just have that one age. Do you think this idea of multi-ageness, is that a word? Multi-ageness exists?
It's a word now.
I guess so.
I think it exists. I think science has actually proven that your brain doesn't fully mature until you're about 25 or so. It might be different for men and women. I believe men it's 25, and I think women it's like 11 or something. But yeah, I think it just all, I sound like a broken record, but it keeps going back to everybody just moves at their own pace and everybody is living their own life and has their own story. But I think for sure there's different ages. I wouldn't necessarily say that the second I turned 25 I was a mature adult or anything like that. I definitely wouldn't say that, actually. But I think you eventually just get there and you eventually, like, just with the world around you, your senses kind of align and you kind of form this direction that you want to go in. And if you don't, you feel lost. And again, you might not get there, not you guys specifically because you're
Yeah, you
like
guys
baby
are-
geniuses, but someone might not get there until they're like 33 or something like that. You know, just, and some people think they get there and at some point they just want to switch careers entirely when they're 45 and things like that. So it's really hard to say. But I do believe that there are different ages and there are different periods where you kind of not click immediately, but you kind of come to the realization of what you're doing and where you're going.
Okay, then at what age or what age do you think you stop becoming an adult or you stop developing? Like, what is that point? Maybe not age, sorry, just like what is the soft line, the boundary at which you are suddenly an adult now?
I don't think there is
I don't think
one.
there is. Yeah, I think people who are 45 don't still are like, what am I doing?
You're still always learning. Some people, I mean, community colleges, they come back to school, you know, because they don't like their career. You're always moving in different jobs, so there's never really an age where it's just like, I'm an adult.
Well, not age, just the soft boundary.
It really
I feel like
depends.
it depends
Yeah,
on
it
people.
depends on
Like
the
it's
person.
like once I get married and have a house and have kids, maybe for a lot of people, you know, here in America, that's like the dream goal. And it's like once you have all of that, you're an adult and you can relax now.
And so also just kind of branching off this too. So in high school, everyone is like given this kind of expectation, you know, like, oh, you're in this grade, you're expected to do this. So college comes with like so much more freedom with that. And so like, how was that transition coming out of that? Was it liberating? Did you feel like you were prepared? Did you just kind of feel like you kind of could get your feet underneath you, or did it feel like someone just pulled the rug out?
So I felt personally liberated, and I was not prepared to be that liberated. As a person who did not do so great on their first try at college, when you first come out and you have all this ample freedom that you never once had, like it's really hard to kind of gain your bearings and kind of almost set out a schedule or a plan as far as how to go about being this free now. And some people come right out of the gate just firing on all cylinders. I have a girlfriend who's like graduated early and is working for a PhD and things like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, she's out of her mind. But yeah, just it's just such a weird thing to have high school where you basically almost walk in single file lines everywhere you go. Lunch is at this period. You have to be here then, and then it's like, when you're in college, everybody's like, whatever. And you're like, wait, no, I don't know what to
So
do.
then what advice do you have for kids going into college to make use of it?
I think the main advice I would have is just to set out a schedule and how you would use your time efficiently. The main problem I had was, you know, I was a younger kid and I was just committing my time to like playing video games because I was like, look at all this time I have to play video games now, rather than being like, okay, well I can do this for an hour, I can do that for an hour, I can focus on studying for 3 hours, I have class until then, go get lunch, come home, and then hang out and do me time. You know, it's all about managing your time and setting up a schedule that's going to move you forward into the direction of success, I think, personally.
Yes, definitely. And going off of that too, what helped me out a lot to figure out what I wanted to go into study was volunteering and shadowing people that were in the career. So I shadowed people that were in school psychologists, you know, and talked to people that, at one point I was thinking of being a lawyer, so I talked to a lawyer, and that for me helped me out a lot, because I did notice a lot of my friends would say, oh, I want to go in and study this in college, and then they would go and then just waste your time, you know, and that to me was what I was scared of, wasting my time in an area that I knew I wasn't going to love. So I learned to try to do as much volunteer work in the careers I thought I wanted to do, and that definitely helped me narrow it down.
And then just kind of thinking about that too is like, should we, just for me personally, because I know people and have been in situations where kids also have to grow up really fast. So should we kind of say that being an adult is just by, you know, getting through school, being successful in the field of like monetary success, you know, education? Like, should we be putting such a hard focus on that's what it means to be an adult, rather than look at these kids who, you know, are going through other situations and saying, oh, they're at-risk students because they're taking care of something, you know, that's way more mature than anyone could ever, you know, imagine.
So I definitely had to grow up at a very young age also. And throughout high school, I was always, well, throughout my whole schooling, I was always told I was really mature for my age. So going with your emotional age, I was definitely probably higher than my physical age. And once I got into college, it just kind of, I got to decide of how I was feeling and where I wanted to take it, if I wanted to go to college and in a way, take the path that everyone says you should be taking, or definitely take that break. So I decided to do part-time schooling and full-time work, just because with me growing up so fast, I couldn't see myself focusing just on schooling.
I mean, I think it's important to set goals and have a direction and things like that, but I don't think it's necessarily super important to grow up way fast like that. I think, you know, there's this super misconception, particularly because of the pressures that's put on like you guys in high school. Like, there's a lot of pressure to get into school and do well and crush all this and like work, like make your own money and things like that. And it's really stressful and hard. And it's hard to be transitioning into college like that. And although goals are great and accomplishing things is really great and all that, I think it's super important to also stop and smell the roses once in a while. And I think that has a lot to do with being an adult as well, as enjoying your time now, and not enjoying it in the sense that throwing away your ambition, but also enjoying kind of the grind of getting towards your goal that you're working towards. I think that has a lot to do with being a mature adult, and that says a lot about who you are.
Balance. How do you balance your adult life and those goals, and how do you, and then on the other side, just trying to be a kid, right? For me, it's really hard because I want to be thinking about going to college. I want to be thinking about where I'm doing, working, because I need more money from my home. But at the same time, really want to be focusing on like getting home, going to bed before 1 a.m., which does not happen very often. And doesn't for many of my peers too. And I think for me, it's really difficult to organize the two. And in fact, for me, it's just as you noted, it's hard to just stop and smell the roses.
So I actually got a calendar. I love it because it gives you like the hours. So I like put in, I work at this time all the way down to this time, and this is my lunch hour. These are my classes. So that helps me break down my work schedule and my school schedule. But with having fun, I don't know, just make yourself laugh, you know, with stopping and smelling the roses when you wake up and make yourself breakfast, or you're packing your lunch, you know. I always notice little things, and it makes me giggle. Or when I'm driving, you know, not being that angry driver, you know, trying to get there on time. And well, what I do is when I'm driving, I actually make eye contact with drivers, And it stops
Weird.
them, and it's like, oh, you're making eye contact. You're like, yeah, like, hey, have a good day, you know? Just little things like that, you know, and just enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's super important to kind of surround yourself with peers who are like-minded like you. People who are going through the same thing, like you guys might be doing AP classes and have these incredible, crazy study schedules that you might be going through, but having someone there who you can ration your time with that you care about and that is like-minded like you and is going through the same thing, I think is a great way to stop and smell the roses. You know, set out a day, like a Saturday or Sunday evening or midday, whatever time it is that you guys can get a second to breathe, and just have a second to breathe with someone you really like. I do a lot of like game nights with board games with friends like that, and that's like a really, it's a fun thing to do, but it's also productive. Like when you get certain games, it's challenging for the brain, so you're still growing as a person, but also getting that opportunity you need to kind of relieve the pressure a little bit.
Yeah. And then just, so we go like from high school, you know, getting there to like kind of this freedom of college, and then we get to the real world, you know, the actual adulthood. So what does that transition look like? Like, is this like what we're given like in education in school? Is this, you know, like even a resemblance of, you know, what our real life world is like? No.
So,
No, yes.
yeah.
You go to school for 8 hours, and you have to find a job that's 8 hours so you can get a good pay. And that to me
Pay
was
for
like,
college.
yeah,
Mhm.
or just to pay for whatever you want. I think it's with what Tyler has been saying, you go with your own pace, you know, and depending if you stay home and or go like out of state for college, you still have to find a way to start paying your own phone bills and start paying your own groceries, and oh, I want a car now, and finding the right car for you. And so a lot of people, when they start doing that alone, I feel like that's when it starts hitting them that I'm becoming an adult. I can't go to mommy and daddy and, you know, I mean, you can go for them and ask them for suggestions and advice, but most of the time they're like, it's your decision, you know. You get to the point where it's like, it's your choice. And that to me was where I was like, I'm becoming an adult because my parents are giving me advice and not telling me what to do. They're giving me options, and that I was speechless.
Yeah. I think it's like there is no class called How to Crush Life because it's so open-ended. Like it's so bizarre. It is extremely different than your school experiences. Like there's that one meme that says, "I know the mitochondria is the powerhouse." You know what I mean? Because it's the most useless information in the entire world. But also, like it's less so the content that you're learning, I feel like, and just that discipline of putting forth the time to accomplish something. That's really what school does in order to prepare you for life, and that's really what should be focused on. I mean, the content seems a little mundane and like you would never use it in your life ever because you won't. But getting up
Just
every
do
day
your best.
and doing your work and
Yeah.
moving forward, that's really what
I
school
hate
teaches
to
you.
wrap up, but unfortunately we do not have a lot of time left. Thank you guys so much for joining
Of
us
course,
today.
thanks for having
Thank you
us.
guys.
Pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Don't forget to watch our next episodes and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Mile High Discussions. And I think we have a YouTube channel where you can actually watch more of these shows just like this.
Cool.
Awesome.
Woo.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.